This week on Supercars Talk, I wrap up the Century Batteries Ipswich SuperSprint. The Supercars were up north in Queensland this weekend and we got to see a new winner. And if you listen to some of the biased commentators out there, we got to see the Commodore win for the first time this year. More on that later. First up, I'll cover off some of the silly season news. One that, not a surprise, Di Pasquale's re-signed at Erebus. Supposedly had some offers elsewhere. Who knows how serious they were or anything, but really where he's at the moment, unless you had someone coming along with a big bag of cash or, maybe if Roger Penske was knocking, I can't see why he'd go anywhere else. Erebus seems a great fit for him, and really they've been the best Commodore team for most of the year, so it's a good fit. Now, a couple of kind of pie in the sky things that talk over the weekend. Apparently Charlie Shirkwalt and Matt Stone Racing could possibly be expanding. The Matt Stone one, I mean, considering they've told Todd Hazelwood, if you get an offer, kind of have a look at it. We might not have a seat for you. I think, they're probably not going to be expanding next year, maybe in the future. Definitely the two-car model makes a lot more sense than the single-car model, but if you haven't got the car, if you haven't got the funds to run, one car properly, where are you going to get the funds to run two? The Charlie one is a lot more interesting. I've heard that Courtney will be on the grid next year and that potentially not at Walkinshaw's. I have heard that Walkinshaw are having a clean out, Mostert and someone else. Then where does Courtney go? And I have heard he will be on the grid, and him and Charlie go back. Charlie was part of that championship year with James Courtney at Dick Johnson Racing. They go back a long way. Charlie's got the money to kind of, buy a second car, things like that. And apparently Courtney's got a sponsorship package with him. I have heard that the big name down the side of the doors on the Walkinshaw cars this year is tied in with James Courtney. So, watch this space. Could all be bullshit, but, who knows? Another piece of news over the weekend, the Kostecki brothers, who are running a wild card for the 3 endurance races as well, not just Bathurst, they are doing all of them. They've got Boost Mobile on as the sponsor for the team. So, be interesting, 3 Boost Mobile cars out there. One's kind of an up-to-date Triple 8 car and the other 2 are, average Gary Rogers cars at the moment. Could be interesting to see the results. And also on the Boost Mobile thing, it looks like Richie's better. Not good enough to be there in Queensland, obviously, but looks like he'll be back at Tail and Bend next race. In the TCR news world, definitely not going to be at Adelaide next year. No surprises there. I've made my views on that, my quite strong views, I've passed them on. But they will be at the Grand Prix. That will be interesting. It's great for TCR that you get, the big audience at the Grand Prix. But as for the racing, I mean, the supercars there, the racing's usually a bit so-so. I can't see TCR having any better racing. Yeah, great for their sponsors and that, but as for the racing, I think the kind of cars that are much better suited for, as a small circuit, I think like Winton or Queensland Raceway, or somewhere, tight like Adelaide Service Paradise. I don't think it's going to be great at the Grand Prix, but who knows? Over the weekend, we also saw the LED panels in the rear windows appear again on some cars. They were, for some reason, I'm not sure if they changed them or not, but they were definitely looking better this weekend, and I noticed in Shane Van Gisbergen's car they had it in the rear window, not the rear passenger window, on the Saturday, which led to they had a really small the yellow numbers on the side of the car, so that was quite small to then have the LED in the rear window, and you kind of, it was a bit hard to see them both. You got quite used to having those big yellow numbers on the windows, nice and easy to read. A lot of the cars it's fine because the different paint jobs and that, but it is say on the Triple Eight cars, the Erebus cars, it is a nice easy way to tell the drivers apart with those numbers on the window. I did notice for Sunday that they'd moved the LED panel from the rear into the front passenger window, so just trialling things. It'd be interesting to see what happens over time. Obviously, if I would have thought that they'd be having these panels on both sides of the car. QR is a great kind of round for this because basically all of the spectators are on the passenger side of the car as they go around the paperclip. There's no spectators in the middle of the track there, so you don't need it on the driver's side. But there will be some circuits where you kind of better off having it on both sides. And if you do have it in that front window, do you have it on the driver's side? Because it starts getting quite close into the head. Although, with the wings and that around the helmet, how much they can see out those windows is debatable at times. And some of the incidents that we see as well, they just go, well, I couldn't see the guy. Yeah. Good excuse. And the final bit of news for the week, Nick Percat, Heron Forbes sponsorship. Not a bad job. It's kind of run of the mill for them this year. They look all right. Race 19 on Saturday, we had all the talk about the Parc Fermé rules beforehand, and all the jokes about it's French for don't touch the car and things like that. Starting to get a little bit tired towards the end. I'm also getting really tired of seeing that graphic of how we run through the 3 stages of qualifying and that, and how there's always jokes about how confusing it is. Well, we're not idiots. We understand it now. It's all pretty straightforward. Yes, it is a bit complicated and whatever. Just also on that qualifying, it seems odd that you have. I know it's to keep the amount of cars on track and whatever. They don't want too many. But it seems odd that in practice, so we have 24 cars in practice to go through, and then so for Q1 we have 14 cars and only 4 get through into the next session, and then so you have 14 cars again on the track and then 10 get through. It seems a bit odd that maybe we could even it up a little bit. I can see why they do it, because they don't want 24 cars on the track at once. They want to minimise it, and 14 is a good number for that. It gives them all space and stuff. But it just seems odd that it seems so relatively hard to get into that Q2, because out of 14 there's only 4 spots, and then to go into Q3 there's 14 cars going for 10 spots. So basically no one gets in the first session, and then it's nearly everyone gets in the second session. So maybe it's something we can look at that, maybe evens it up, or, maybe even we look at, like maybe a top 3 or a top 5 go straight through to Q3, and then you have a more even kind of knockout on the other sessions or something. But, just me rambling on about things once again. So, there was really kind of one incident for the race, the Todd Hazelwood, Anton De Pasquale incident. Todd got a 15-second penalty for it. I think because it was a relatively quiet day with, there wasn't really much incidents, a couple of things in the pit lane, like, Scotty's, the wheel nut sticking or whatever happened there. So it seemed to get, considering what happened in Townsville and that, it seemed to be a bit overblown, but, these things happen when we have a quiet day. And of course we saw Whincup win, and the commentators going on about how it was great to finally see a Commodore win a race and all that. Then they tried to do a bit of a disclaimer, I think, when someone kind of went, hey, you know Shane Van Gisbergen's won this year. And they went, oh, yeah, but that was at Townsville when it was wet. And it's like, Tasmania? Do we all forget Tasmania where Shane Van Gisbergen went and won? But, you know, it's great for the competition to see, you know, Triple Eight back up there. Whether it'll be interesting to see whether this is, you know, a turning point for them or not. Of course, this is their home track. They have been testing there the previous week, so they should be in a good position. Next up, we go to Taylor Bend. That's a track that they absolutely dominated last year, so it'll be interesting to see whether, you know, their results are similar. Of course, you know, they have lost their, you know, box of tricks with the twin spring, but be interesting to see what happens there. If you know, if they are, you know, right up the front there, you could say, well, you know, they blew everyone away there last year, so it's not really, we probably won't get a true gauge until later on in the year whether they're, you know, back or whether that's it. So and Will Davison was on the podium. You know, I mean, it's a tick for car and it's Will Davison, but, you know, it's kind of great because it is that fourth-ish satellite kind of operation. And then Chaz was third with Scott down in a lowly fourth, which, you know, for him, championship-wise, that's fine. Shane Van Gisbergen fifth. And interestingly, Waters and Lee Holdsworth were sixth and seventh. So, you know, Tickford had 4 cars in the top 7. You know, that's not all Mustang because, you know, Scott's teammate, what's his name? That bloke that was playing down the back all weekend. You know, it wasn't just a Mustang party. Tickford, you know, they've got some real pace, and it would be interesting if you took the Mustang kind of out of it, and they went back to, say, the FGX Falcon with this single spring kind of deal and see where they are. I mean, you've got Tom Randall who, you know, other than a cramp, he would have won both races on the weekend, and he had a great weekend in Townsville too. So Sunday in race 20, had a couple more incidents in this one. The biggest one was the Fabian and Anton incident. No further action. That's great. As far as I'm concerned, for those who didn't see it, Fabian went diving down the inside of turn 4, I think it is, you know, kind of locked up. Anton turned in, you know, not expecting Fabian to be kind of where he was, and then spun him around, and they're supposed to be turning in that way, and Fabian locked up straight across. Anton turned in and spun him around that way, so he's, you know, it's all spectacular. He's off facing the wrong way. This is great. I reckon this is great kind of thing. You know, there's a lot of guys out there that, you know, they're passing. Actually, this year it hasn't been as bad, but in previous years you've seen a lot of guys just kind of come steaming in, lock up the back brakes, you know, and basically bumper cars someone off, which, you know, that's all good and well if you're playing on iRacing or whatever, or you're out go-karting. These guys, I don't think you should be, you know, kind of destruction derby, dive bombing people like that. You know, I'm surprised we haven't seen much of it before, but great for Anton to kind of give him a nudge and just keep going with it and spin him around, you know, get him out of the way. I think there should be more of that, you know, sort it out on track, racing incidents, let him go, all good fun. Also on Fabian, he seemed to have gone, you know, they've signed this contract and, you know, for how long, who knows, but he's got his contract signed and where's Fabian gone? You know, this is the guy who's second in the championship and he's playing down the back. You know, we've seen this before. He just, he can have some brilliant races and then he just goes totally missing. You know, that's not really what a Penske driver should be doing, and, you know, is he going to hold on to his seat for another year if he keeps doing this kind of stuff? So at the end of the day, it was good that we saw a close finish. You know, we had Shane charging in on Scott towards the end. You know, you kind of, it wasn't super close, but at least, you know, you're a bit on the edge of your seat, like, you know, can he catch him or not? a lot of races this year have kind of been, one certain Mustang out in front of everyone else, and no question towards the end. So that was good to see. Of course, then we had Chaz in third, Jamie in fourth, and Will Davison and Cam Waters in fifth and sixth. So once again, three of the Tickford cars in the top six. The other one went a bit missing with Fabian, but they're doing a great job. Championship wise, not too much has changed other than Scott's on 2,438. Well, it's a big number, but Fabian is now 433 points behind, so he's drifting again. And Shane Vergisbergen, 520 behind, starting to haul in. I reckon Shane's going to probably finish second in the championship. Definitely the way he's going. Chaz is then 540 behind. Could we see Chaz overhaul Fabian as well? And then Jamie's 640 behind. It's it's a big amount, but it's if Fabian keeps having weekends like he has bad results somewhere, he could easily kind of be knocked back to fifth, and Dave Reynolds is not far behind Jamie Whincup either. We could see Fabian out of the top 5 before the end of the year. So that's my wrap up of the Century Batteries Ipswich SuperSprint. I'll see you next time.
Put away your inhibitions, let the beast in you just get loose. We all young, wild and